are the new supervisor course, week 4, our very last webinar for this course. And I'll tell you, it's been a pleasure to be with you. You know, we had our orientation, week 1, week 2, week 3, and now week 4, the last 5 weeks. It's been a pleasure to be with you and everything here. All right, Gene, I'll pass it on to my boss. Anyway, like I said, it's been a pleasure for you taking time out of your schedule and everything, and I really, really appreciate that. We'll talk more about that later when we get towards the end of the course. So here's what we're going to do today. All right, let me clear everyone's status on the green check marks. So here's what we're going to do. All right, first off, we're going to do the usual thing. You know, we're going to do the talk about the gathering activity, go through the slides. We've got another session where we should actually break into groups again. But, you know, I'm just going to continue what we've been doing this entire course, and we'll look at a couple of the scenarios together and brainstorm together. I'm not pushing my luck. So since we started that way, let's just end that way too. All right. So we'll do that today. Then I'll do some course wrap up where I'll talk about, you know, what to expect over the next few days and everything through Monday and so on. And then, you know, and we'll go over these final slides and look and so on. Then I'm going to shut off the recording. When I shut off the recording, then I'll be glad to tell you, I've got your grades right here. I actually printed out everyone's grades. Yeah, Gene, I even went into Lynetta's area and I printed yours too. Okay, so that way, if you want to know what you owe or anything, because, you know, this course ends next Monday. So actually, you've got like, today's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. You still got, 6 days or so to get everything finished. So, you know, you guys are actually the first webinar for this entire week for everybody. So, so it gives you through this week and through Monday to get all your work done. But what I'll do is like I said, I'll shut down the recording when we're all finished, and you can those of y'all who will be on the phone can say your name if you want. I'll let you know if you owe anything. Those of y'all who are in the classroom with me, you can type your name in. Hey, Don, do I owe anything or whatever? And this is as of when I started this webinar, you know, at the top of the hour, when I opened up the room. So that's how current this is. Now, if you went in and did any coursework in the last 30 minutes, I'm not in Canvas right now, so I won't know that. But if you did it in the last 30 minutes, I'm sure it's there. So if you completed something, but I say that, hey, you still owe me this, you said, no, Don, I just did that. Okay, then trust me, it's there, and you'll be good to go. But I'll be glad to do that for you as a way to try and help you, because the last thing we want to do is have you not complete the course for not completing any of your requirements. Okay. So I've got quite a few people that have actually completed all their requirements. I've got a couple people that have only did the pre-assessment, which is okay, and that's fine. Because like I said, all the other things, the week 1 progress check through week 4, and that post-course review, I really wasn't tracking that. Right? That's not due until next Monday. But the last thing I want you to do is come in on Monday next week, and your internet be down. You end up getting sick over the weekend. You don't make it into work on Monday. You can't complete your work as supposed to be, because if you come in on Tuesday, it's too late. The course actually shuts down on Monday night, midnight time. So if you come in on Tuesday trying to get caught up, the very last thing, it doesn't count. Okay, so that's what I've been saying since day one. Remember, you can always work ahead. You never know what can happen on that very last minute thing or whatever. All right. Anyway, we'll do that as we get towards the end of today. All right. Okay. So anyway, so I was really enjoying everything here. Jeffrey, I hope everything's better for you now. So we got people typing in like family. We got fathers-in-laws. We got dads, old supervisors, previous commanders, former directors, and so on. Again, dad and a former director, my father. It's and that's not surprising that that family is normally one of the popular answers on here. Bradley said his mom, and so on. So the idea about that mentor and that advisor is, it's someone that maybe you've reached out to in the past, someone who maybe got you on the right path. maybe someone you can pick up the phone now and call or send an email to or whatever. If you ever have an issue, especially if you have an issue at work that you haven't dealt with before, and it's like, man, I haven't encountered this. Who has? Let me contact Chief so and so or whatever. See if they've ever had to deal with this. Just someone you can reach out and touch. That's what a good mentor and advisor is about. And the reason I ask this question, I actually like this question so much, I use it in both the courses that I teach on the very last week. This one and the military personnel management course, because no matter what, as a supervisor, we've probably got someone that we've been able to reach out to. But the idea is to remember, we learn as much from bad supervisors as we do from good supervisors. Because, we try and emulate the good ones, and the bad ones we try and remember, okay, that's what they did, I know not to do that, right? So the idea is if we were to ask this question in the future to maybe one of your students, your subordinates, it's maybe one of our students, they may say, hey, who's your great mentor or advisor? And maybe someone will say, well, actually, it was Lex and Rebecca and so on. So all these people that I've looked up to in the past, and they say you. Because remember, we've been saying since day one in this particular course right here, this course is all about just trying to enhance our knowledge just a little bit to try and help us in our functions and our duties, responsibilities, or whatever, of being that good supervisor. And like I said, also since the orientation, remember your most individual that you can reach out to is that subject matter expert, whether it's a civilian personnel, the civilian training office, that training office in your squadron. Maybe there's some classes on base taught by the chiefs group, maybe some officers group, maybe some civilians get together. Whatever it is, there are avenues out there for you. And even when we graduate, I'm still here for you. All right. But let's talk about these folks here on the screen real quick, talking about mentors and advisors. Now let's talk about the bookends. All right. On the left, we've got Pat Summitt. Now she's deceased, unfortunately. She was a women's basketball coach at the University of Tennessee. But she retired a few years ago and then passed away. But not only was she known to be a great mentor and advisor to the young women coming up through their college basketball program, but also the men as well. She was a very beloved figure at the University of Tennessee. And being from Kentucky, I really don't care for that color orange, right? But I do realize that she was a great mentor and advisor to a lot of folks there at that particular university. The young man on the far right-hand side, that is Tony Dungy. If you don't know who Tony Dungy is, he is a prior NFL football coach, and he is also an NFL TV analyst. But he's also known to mentor and advise, especially young men, to try and keep them on the right path. Whether it's in their family life and their faith, whatever it is. But I don't know if you can see the slide big enough, but right behind Tony Dungy is actually a poster of one of his books called The Mentor Leader. Now, those three individuals, I've had lots of mentors and advisors over the years. Some of them I can't find their pictures. I had Chief Master Sergeant Bill and Debbie Bass and a couple commanders and everything. But these three individuals are ones that I have pictures of, so that's why I put them here on the screen. I'll talk about the first one right in the very middle at first. That's actually our boss. That's Brian Schooley. He was an enlisted guy. Then he turned over to the other side and became an officer. And he retired as a lieutenant colonel. But I didn't meet Brian until I started working for this company because he's actually our project manager. He's our boss. Now, when I was down in Alabama, I had that position until I went overseas. So I know everything that's on Brian's plate, and I appreciate what he does for us. And he doesn't hesitate in allowing us to send him messages. Hey, Brian, I got a question. Brian, you can help me, whatever the case is. So he is really, really there for us at all the times. All right, Rebecca, gotcha. Okay. Ooh, bad storm. Stay safe, Rebecca. All right. Let's see. The young lady on the right hand side between Brian and Tony Dungy. Brian was your wife's Commander Masawa. Yep. As a matter of fact, Gene, that picture right there is at Masawa. That's all the snow That's when the I believe the Secretary of Defense came for a visit. Brian said. But anyway, the young lady between Brian and Tony Dungy, that was the first commander that I was a wing command chief for. And this was down at Goodfellow. We worked a lot of issues together. She was a colonel then, and now she retired as a 4-star. That is Lori Robinson. I don't know if you've heard of her or not. But we worked a lot of issues down there at Goodfellow, and we had a lot of fun. But we had some sad issues as well, such as we had Brian Kofage, who was hurt over in the war. And, of course, we lost Elizabeth Jacobson. And that was a sad time for the two of us to go over to the Security Forces squadrons to talk to those members and everything. But so I still keep in contact with the general every now and then. Retired, her and her husband David are really, really good people. The young man between Pat Summit and Brian is actually Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force number 5, Bob Gaylor. And I don't know if you've had the opportunity to meet Chief Gaylor. He's still around. I believe he has a birthday next week on the 8th, and I believe he'll be 87 years old. He still goes out and gives us speeches at awards banquets and academy graduations and Airman Leadership School graduations and so on. He is a highly sought after individual because everybody loves to hear him speak. I actually had the honor and privilege that when I retired from the Air Force, the wing commanders presented the medal. This was out at Fairchild. Presented the medal, and then the wing commander sat down because Chief Gaylor actually officiated the rest of my retirement ceremony. So we've been friends for quite a few years, and he does not hesitate to send me an email saying, "Don, guess what I heard?" or whatever the case is. But if you've had the opportunity to meet him, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't had the opportunity, I hope you do it sometime in the future. All right. Anyway, so those on the screen were 5 great mentors and advisors that I've heard about. And like I said, I enjoyed reading what you had to say about yours as well. All right. Hey, here's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk a little bit about employee engagement. We're actually going to see a short little video of one of my favorite movies and trying to find out how Peter is doing in his employee engagement. They're at his particular work center. All right. Then we're going to talk a little bit about handling unacceptable performance. We'll get into some counseling, performance improvement plans, or as we like to call them, just PIPs, right? And then we'll look into some disciplinary actions. So as you see, there's not a whole lot to do today, but like I said, we're going to do a little bit of group work together and so on. As you see up there in the roadmap, it does match exactly what we're saying right there. And of course, we have our objective of comprehend various employee engagement techniques, along with handling unacceptable behavior to include counseling, performance improvement plans, and disciplinary actions. All right. So the file share over there, like I said, I only got 3 things for you this week. We've got a handout called the Employee Assistance Program. What it is, there's a memo that came out from Air Staff. There's a nice little card and a good supervisor's guide for that particular program. What I did for you is I took all 3 and put them into one little PDF for you, so you can download that if you like. Of course, I've got these slides, which you got on Monday. And there's also a little handout over there that come from the Office of Personnel Management called Poor Performance Guide for Supervisors. Some nice little stuff that OPM has put out, little tidbits and guidance to help you as a supervisor if you happen to have to deal with those poor performers. All right. So let's do this. So the first thing I want to do is we're going to talk about employee engagement. All right. So what I'm going to do in doing this employee engagement, we're actually going to look at a little video. So I'm going to take the phone, for those of y'all who are on the phone only, and put it right next to the speaker. I know you may not be able to see it if you're not here in the classroom, but hopefully you can hear it. So like I said, this is one of my favorite little movies. You're going to see this it's about a 2-minute clip about a young man named Peter who is not enjoying his work. All right. So hang on for just a moment. Here we go.
Would you walk us through a typical day for you?
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I generally come in at least 15 minutes late.
I use the side door. That way Lumberg can't see me. And after that, I just sort of space out for about an hour. Till I'm
Space out?
Yeah, I just stare at my desk. But it looks like I'm working. I do that for probably another hour after lunch, too. I'd say in a given week, I probably only do about 15 minutes of real, actual work.
Peter, would you be a good sport and indulge us and just tell us a little more?
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you something about TPS reports. The thing is, Bob, it's not that I'm lazy. It's that I just don't care.
Don't care?
It's a problem of motivation, all right? Now, if I work off and Initech ships a few extra units, I don't see another dime. So where's the motivation? Now, here's something else, Bob. I have 8 different bosses right now.
I beg your pardon?
8 bosses.
8?
8, Bob. So that means that when I make a mistake, I have 8 different people coming by to tell me about it. That's my only real motivation, is not to be hassled. That and the fear of losing my job. But you know, Bob, that'll only make someone work just hard enough not to get fired.
Would you bear with me for just a second, please?
Okay.
What if, and believe me, this is so hypothetical, but what if you were offered some kind of a stock option equity sharing program? Would that do anything for you?
I don't know, I guess. Listen, I'm gonna go. It's been really nice talking to both of you guys.
Absolutely. The pleasure's all on this side of the table, trust me.
Good luck with your layoffs, all right? I hope your firings go really well.
Excellent. Great.
All right, so I don't know if you've ever seen that movie before, but that movie is actually called Office Space. It's a few years old, because if you happen to watch those Chicago TV shows right now, you notice the guy on the screen right there on the left. He's actually the one who's trying to run for mayor on that Chicago PD show, so he's much older now. But anyway, like I said, that is called Office Space, and of course he has a bad boss by the name of Bill Lumberg, but he really hates his job. I mean, Peter really hates his job. So he actually goes to a hypnotist on a Friday evening with his girlfriend, right? Yeah, have you seen my stapler? That's right. With his girlfriend to try and get his mind straight and back to normal, basically, you might say. Unfortunately, after he gets hypnotized on that Friday evening, the hypnotist keels over and dies. So he never unhypnotizes Peter. So Peter has a type of attitude right now that maybe you might have when it comes to some of your employees. So what do you think about? Type in the chat box for me. What do you think about Peter's engagement right now? As an employee, what do you think about the way he's presenting himself now? Right? Before he hated his job. Now he's just sort of. What you got to say about that? Right? Truthful and carefree. Yeah, he's very truthful and carefree. That's for sure, because he doesn't know any better. He's just blurting it all out there. That's exactly correct. And like I said, maybe you might have one of these employees. I really hope not, but you never can tell. No worries in the world, apathetic, whatever. Okay, and you're right, Kelly. Sadly, there are some people like that. All right, carefree, zero motivation. Exactly correct. All right. Let's think about the 2 Bobs for a moment, because that's what the 2 characters there on the screen are called. Right? Now, the 2 Bobs, they said, hey, what about some stock options? Do you think that would, well, what do you think about their motivational techniques? Do you really think it's going to help Peter or anything? What do you think about that? Right? Because remember, one of the hardest jobs we have as a supervisor is trying to find out what actually motivates our people. And as we all know, not everybody's motivated by the same thing. Completely out of touch with what's really motivated people. Yeah, okay, yeah, does not care. Just the minimum. That's right. Hey, now, like I said, if you haven't seen the movie before, what actually happens is the 2 Bobs actually get Peter promoted to a supervisory position, and then Peter actually has to lay off and fire his 2 best friends. All right, which he doesn't want to do, but that's his new job, basically. And of course, the whole building burns down later because the guy lost his stapler and so on and so forth. And like I said, that's another story right there, right? And need more pieces of flair. Exactly correct, all right? Anyway, But one of our instructors, Ken Burnham, said, "Hey, Don, what do you think about that video? I thought it was one of my favorite movies." And notice how it fits right in here into employee engagement. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the video now and bring my phone back down here away from those speakers, put it back here towards me a little bit. So when it comes to, basically employee engagement, I'm going to put a question down in the chat pod for you, which means there's no right or wrong answer since I have the word "what do you believe" in it, right? So here we go. Down in the chat pod, if you'll follow along and type your answers in there for me. In relation to your own experiences, what do you believe is key to keeping employees engaged and motivated in the workplace? What do you think is key? What are things you do or not, or whatever the case is. Engaged supervisors, good. Participation, okay, good. What else we got? Knowing what motivates them. Yeah, that's really hard, trying to find out what motivates everybody. Communication. We've seen that, marriages break down because of communication, right? Ownership. That's right. Give them that sense of ownership so they see a reason for being there. Compensation. Listening to them. Yeah, difference between hearing and listening, isn't there? Limiting micromanagement. Exactly correct. I am not a micromanager. Never have been. I once had a wing commander tell me, Chief, I got really good group commanders out there. If I got to do their job, why do I have them? Right? Keep people engaged. Keep them in the loop. Speaking to them, good. Knowing them as individuals, yeah. Right? Setting that example for them as well. One thing that I used to do, I would go out and I'd visit work centers when I was either a squadron chief or a group chief, or as a wing command chief. It was hard to know everybody. I tried to know as many as I could, but I wanted to know a little bit about something about everybody that fell under our particular umbrella. So that way, when I go out there, whether it's a spouse, whether they had children, kids, whatever it is, that way they'll say, that they'll see that we really care, about their welfare, not just what they do here at work and that, because we get to know them as individuals. And responsibilities, compensations, trust, and reward. Good. All right. Great answers right there. Right? So when it comes to employee engagement, this, of course, this is the official definition that you find on the U.S. Merit System Protection Board, right, where it says, basically a high level of motivation based upon heightened connections, right, resulting in employees who give their best effort to achieve improved results. It sort of sounds like what we talked about the other week. We talked about performance management, right? Because, we got the good performance management, we got good employee engagement. Hopefully it will help us meet our mission as effectively as possible, right? Well, let's look at a couple scenarios, right? Here we got Betty. So if you're following along on the slides, we are on scenario number 1, right? So Betty is a supervisor who loves her job and is very passionate about what she does and how she does it. She routinely takes advantage of opportunities to learn, and she ensures that her team is prepared to take advantage of those developmental opportunities as well. Right? In addition, her employees always know what her expectations for their work because she meets with them regularly to discuss their work. In turn, they always give her their best and follow her lead in looking for professional growth opportunities. So I'm going to bring over a poll pod, our first poll pod, our first of 3, okay? So here we got Betty's engagement. What's her scale? On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being completely disengaged and 5 being completely engaged. Where do you think Betty falls, in your opinion? And we've had varying answers on this, right, over past webinars. See, we got one already who said, nope, she's completely disengaged. She doesn't have an idea what she's doing, right? So we got one that says completely disengaged. We got one that says she's neither engaged or disengaged. She's, right in the middle. We got someone that says somewhat disengaged. We got another person, she says that she is somewhat engaged. Our majority, with about 62%, is that she is completely engaged, right? So again, it's all your opinion of how you view Betty. Some of you may think that she's a little bit too good to be true, but some of you may say, I know a Betty, and I like work for this Betty, or I'd like to work for this person named Betty, or whatever the case is. All right, so that was Betty. Now now that we've talked about Betty, let's change it up and let's talk about Bill for a moment. All right, so let's look at Bill. Now, Bill is a very competent program manager. He was hired 6 months ago. He came into the government system as a GS-13. He came from the private sector. Never worked for the government before. Started as a GS-13. All right. Now, in the short time that he's been here, Bill is already thinking of looking elsewhere. Within 6 months, he's already thinking about that. He's frustrated. He gets no feedback whatsoever from his manager, has no sense of how he fits into the organization's overall goals or how he's performing. Bill's motivation is down and he's not engaged in the work. All right. Now, you have just picked up Bill as a new subordinate. Bill was underneath someone else. Now you have Bill. He became your subordinate this week. All right. So my question in the chat pod for you is this. So as Bill's new supervisor, what could you do to help turn things around and get him engaged? What are some of the things that you could do? Because apparently his other supervisor didn't do a daggone thing, it seems like. All right. So what you got right there? All right, got a lot of people typing in. Love that. All right, here we go. All right, so what could you do to help turn things around and get him engaged? All right, be transparent, giving feedback, mission, expectations, good. To me, it also sounds like you said, give him an expectation. Sounds like you never got an initial briefing or anything, right? Let him know expectations, clear expectation. Right, sit down, see what he has to say. Regular feedback, good. Because you'd be surprised, this happens where someone comes in, especially if they're a higher GS level, they'll say, oh, they must know all this stuff already, so we'll just leave them alone. And then they're left to sink or swim. And we see that sometimes with our officers too, right? Especially our second lieutenants. They come into the work center and they're already in charge because of their rank. But basically, and I don't mean no disrespect to a second lieutenant when I say this, but when you think about on the knowledge scale, an airman basic just coming in and to the work center brand new, and a second lieutenant just coming in brand new have about the same knowledge level when it comes to doing the actual job in that, right? And it could be the same thing with this GS-13, right? And so we got open and honest communication, talk to him, feedback, goals and feedback. Yeah, exactly. We need to sit down him and get him engaged. Now, I had one person type in a couple classes ago and said, hey, the dude's a GS-13. Right? It should know better. But remember, he's brand new to the government system. And if you've been in the private sector and then come to the government, it's different between night and day sometimes. It's even different between night and day between MAGCOMs, all right? And so on. Exactly correct. Set his goals and what you expect from him. Good, all right? Y'all did really good on that right there. So some of the things that you could do is, like you said, you could talk to him about the vision, the mission. You could communicate with them. Like you said, maybe he needs a mentor. Maybe you're not that mentor as the supervisor. Maybe you know someone. Maybe that's too close to the situation for you personally. Then again, for those of y'all who are on the phone, I really apologize for that. It sounds like someone on the phone placed their phone on hold. Hopefully that music will end very, very soon. All right? Keep our fingers crossed. All right? Anyway, the idea is maybe that mentor, like I said, could be you. Maybe you'll assign someone else as a mentor that's not within the supervisory chain of command, basically. All right? All right. Anyway, so those were a couple scenarios right there. Right? Here are some employee engagement strategies like you all were just typing in when it comes to things that you could do with Bill. Right? Y'all were typing in talking about work expectations. Y'all were talking about goals and feedback and recognizing and so on, employee development. So all those things that you all were basically putting in that chat pod are there on that slide as well. So y'all got that down. Good employee engagement strategies. All right. Again, I apologize for those of y'all who are on the phone who are hearing music. Hopefully that music will end. That is not me. That is one of your fellow students who've put their phone on hold. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that ends very, very soon. All right. All right, let's talk about handling unacceptable performances for a little bit right here, right? So when we think about, unacceptable performances, I'm going to bring a poll pod over for you in front of this slide, right? So if you can answer your second poll pod for me for today, how do you feel your organization holds people accountable for their performance and or behavior? Again, for those of you all on the phone, I apologize for a student who placed their phone on hold. Do you feel your organization holds your people accountable for their performance and or behavior? So we've got 14, 15, about 75% of the classes said no. We got about 20, now 76. Good, okay. Sounds like, it sounds like the phone out there is off hold. If you happen to be one of the students out there that placed your phone on hold, just let you know, we got to hear the music. So please never place the phone on hold. It sounds like the music has now ended. All right, good. All right, so anyway, so it looks like we've got about 72% of the class that says no, and 7% that says yes. And sometimes we'll have commanders in this class, and about this time, sometimes I'll have a commander type in and say, hey, if we're not doing our job, if perception is everything. And silence can be considered acceptance. So if you feel that this is not happening, push it up to your OIC, to the senior master sergeant, to the chief master sergeant, to the first sergeant, whoever it is. Push it up the chain to let them know that, hey, this is what we're perceiving out there, because maybe the perception is not correct, but that's what the people are seeing. So we need to make sure that that we get that word across. I've always been open to that. I've actually had people come to me and say, Chief, these are the things that we're seeing from the commander. I'll say, okay, thanks, appreciate the information. Go and talk to the commander. Commander says, I had no idea that's what they were thinking or seeing, whatever. Also, you may remember that as a new commander comes in, one of the first things that usually happens is they do like a climate assessment survey, so they can find out, get the health and the wealth of the squadron, basically. And that's what those climate surveys are for, too. But commanders are always open to that more than just during those particular survey times. So actually, that doesn't surprise me that we've got about 73% that said no. But hopefully we are doing something, pushing it up the line to get that taken care of. Because if you see it, of course, those below us see it as well. That's where we said, silence becomes acceptance sometimes, and we don't want that at all. All right, so here's some things when it comes to handling unacceptable performance. This is where we're actually going to look at a couple scenarios. Again, this is where we would normally break you into group for about 15 minutes, let you work on, each group would have a scenario based on a what would you do type situation. But because we've got so many people on the phone, and because the things about Adobe Connect, and to keep that we've been going the entire class, I'm just going to change up the room for a little bit, and we're just going to look at a couple of them together. All right, so let's do that. Let's go here. Here we go. All right, so let's see. All right, if you see Group 1 scenario at the very top of your screen, give me laughter. Give me laughter. The smiley face. If you see Group 1 scenario at the very top of your screen, Group 1 scenario, or the check mark, whatever works, Michelle. That's good. Okay, good. All right, good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and clear those out then. All right, so here we go. So here's what we're going to do. As you see over there on the far right-hand side, this would be like the group leader notes pod. Remember, I said, the groups would brainstorm, and then the one group leader would actually summarize what the individuals would actually said. And normally, if we do this, like we would do, if we had all the stuff. That's okay, James. Stay safe, right? We'd actually have the group leaders actually call in on the phone and actually give a little brief on the phone to everybody. But we're just going to do this here together today, all right? Hey, so follow along with me. So those of you who are on the phone, you will not see this scenario. It's not part of the slides. So if you'll listen along on the telephone then, all right, in that case. All right, so Group 1 scenario. John has recently been promoted to a new job in one of your contracting sections. When he came on board, you sat down with him and explained his duties, your expectations, but he appears overwhelmed. A sizable number of assignments tend to be late or incomplete, but not all of them. Right? Some of his work was done well and on time. You've already counseled him on a couple of occasions, and he promises to do better. You even helped him by setting up some training for him, right? But he still seems to be struggling, right? So what would you do? What are some issues? Type these in the chat pod for me. What are some issues that you might want to address in this to John? What are some things that you as a supervisor might do, right, to try and get this corrected? So feel free, type in. What are some issues you'd look at, and what would you do, basically, right? What you all got to say? John's in one of your new contracting. So Gene said he put him on a PIP, all right? The performance improvement plan. Okay, all right, good. Put him with a more the buddy system. Marry him up with somebody. Okay, that's good, Alberto. What else we got? Ask him where he is struggling with and if he needs extra help. Okay, good. You would have him have some others help him to see if that improves. Okay, good. Find out where, what he's struggling with. Is it the same kind of late or incomplete, or ID his strengths, his weaknesses? Ask him. Good, Montravius. Talk to him directly. Have a senior team member help him. Right. Ask John about any roadblocks. Good. Find out what do you feel the struggles are. Open and honest communication. Further investigate some of his work. Give him a mentor. Good, Kent. I would have a lead shadow him to find out what his issues are. Okay, good. All those are great answers. Good. And by the way, all of our scenarios that we use are actually real scenarios that students have given to us. We've just changed the names to protect the innocent. All right. Good answers. In other words, we would try and get him some help. Some of y'all would put him on a PIP. Of course, if things don't correct, then we may have to do other things later. We've already counseled him, right? Promises to do better, still struggling though. All right. Good. All right. That was group one. Let's do another one. Let's look at this one right here. Let's look at David. Right? Now, David is one of your financial analysts in your section who oversees financial responsibilities for the ABC Weapons Program. Now, he's been doing this job for 2 years, and his performance has always been good as that program manager. Right? Well, just recently, he assumed financial responsibilities for another program because someone left. So now he's got 2 programs. Well, in the last 2 months, that first program he had, the ABC Weapons Program, well, that program manager has started to complain about David. Right? He says David has consistently failed every task or assignment given him for that particular program. He was doing fine for 2 years, and all of a sudden he's doing really bad. To your knowledge, David hasn't indicated any trouble, nor have you noticed anything wrong. All right. So what are some issues you might want to address, and what are some of the steps you might do as a supervisor here? All right. So, James, I'm not sure if that was the last one or this one, but I'll say it. More training, give him address his issues, way to fix the issues, and power to give him ideas. Right? Is he getting work overload? Is he getting overworked? Falling behind to give him some help? Yeah. Like you said, he was doing great for 2 years, on that program. And all of a sudden, he's falling behind on that particular program. Right? Get him some help. Right? Maybe I won't say anything. Let's see what y'all got to say. You would offer to help him yourself. Okay, Kelly, good. Talk to him about his workloads and his attitudes. All right. Help him prioritize his workload since he took on additional work, okay? Maybe things change on the ABC program system side, yeah? And it could be also maybe because he's done that one so well, maybe he's not familiar with this new program, so he's trying to do the best he can over here, and so this one over here is suffering, right? Maybe watch his progress, investigate complaints further, talk to him, get a better idea, try to avert the knee-jerk reaction, great. Maybe he's lacking motivation to pick up the other program. What's the incentive for him? All right, good. First, talk to him, make sure he's mentally okay. Good. Maybe he's totally just overwhelmed and he just doesn't want to come to you. He's actually doing the job of 2 people now. Right? So maybe he is just overwhelmed. But, what gets me about this scenario is he was doing fine for 2 years. Great. No complaints whatsoever. Then once he started doing the second program, now all of a sudden his first program is suffering. So something's happening here, right? Because if he was fine before, why is he not fine now, right? Right. Look to see if anything outside of work. Oh, that's good, Wesley. Maybe something's happening in his personal life as well. Maybe requirements change that we don't know about. He hasn't told you about, or whatever the case is, too. So there can be all kinds of issues out there. Okay. All right. Let's do one more. One more. All right. One more. All right. All right. So here we go. One more. Steve has been a mechanic for 10 years, and you're in the unit here for 10 years. And he's recently been assigned to you as his supervisor. Now, in the last 10 years, you are now his 5th supervisor, right? And you've had him for the last 8 months. Now, during the time that you've been supervising, you've noticed his job performance tends to border on barely acceptable and unacceptable. Some tasks he completes, some he doesn't. Right? When you intervened a few months ago with counseling, he assured you he didn't need any training. I can do this job. For a brief period, there was a slight improvement, but eventually his performance fell to and has remained at an unacceptable level. What would you do? All right, hang on, I got someone private chatting me. See what we got right here. Oh, that's okay, William. No problem. No problem at all. You're good to go. All right, so anyway, so Eric might get right there. I'm putting him on a pip. He's had 5 supervisors in 10 years. That's roughly, a supervisor every 2 years. You've had him for the last 8 months. But if he's been barely acceptable or even unacceptable, what happened all those other years? What do those other supervisors do? Just let him just skate by? So we get pip, 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 pip. All these pips, right? Talking about, yeah, Kelly, that's a good thing. Maybe, and if we're going to look to moving him to a lower position or even maybe a lower GS level or not, that's where we definitely want to get with our civilian personnel folks too, right? Find out what motivates him besides counseling. Yeah, because apparently, Rebecca, the counseling is not working, right? He has the experience, but he's probably lacking motivation. Yep, Pip, find out what motivates him. Exactly correct, all right? So great, good job. Like I said, these are type of scenarios you may run. Bradley, just like Office Space. Go ahead and promote him, right? All right. Anyway, so the idea is remember, you may run into this. Hey, let's think about this. Let's say that let's take, for example, you've had him only for a year, just at a year, and this is his first assignment, right? So that means he's probably in what if he's only been here for about a year? He's a new GS employee. He's only been here for about a year, so he's probably in what type of program, right? What type of program would you say he's in if he's a newer employee, right? There, he's in probationary period. Now we know that the probationary period for some career fields have changed. So type in the chat pod for me, based on your experiences in your particular career field. How long is the probationary period for your folks? Right? What y'all got to say right there? We got 3 years, 2 years, 3 years. Okay, I know the norm is 2 years, right? 3 years, 2 years, 3 years. There we got a 1. They can vary based on a particular GS series. Like I said, on the nuances of the actual career field can vary. 3 months. Wow, I have never heard anything below 1 year. That's really unusual. 3 months. Okay. All right. So the idea is if you got this employee and they're in probation, and if they're not doing acceptable work, then maybe they're not going to make it through probation, and sometimes that's where we just let them go or whatever the case is. So, you can have an employee who's very experienced or an employee who's not experienced and still run into some of the same issues. Wesley just typed in, we have sent mechanics back to the floor because they hit the 1 year mark and they just couldn't handle the work. It happens. Not every career field is for every individual, and sometimes they take on more. They think that this area is good for them, so they want to move into this area, and they get there, and it's just too much, overwhelming. Not every job is for every individual, and so on. Right? That's why on the military side, on your enlisted folks, sometimes when they're off the tech school, sometimes they get washed out of this tech school and they end up moving into a different career field because it just didn't work out for them. It happens, right? Computers are not for everyone either. That's exactly correct, Wesley. All right, we go back to the main classroom. Y'all did really, really good on this scenario, so go back. All right. So once the once the slide comes up, once my slide comes up anyway, that shows disciplinary actions, do me a favor and give me applause. Give me applause if you see that. Yeah, Rebecca, I see you got your hand up. Got a question? See you got your hand up. Right? And Alberto got a hand up too. Got a question? Oh, no, there you go. Right? All right, okay. Rebecca, if you got a question, Rebecca, go ahead and type it in if you got a question. Yep. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clear that out. So if you got a question, feel free to type it in. If not, then it was just you hit the wrong thing, and that's cool. All right. So sometimes, we have to do this. We have to deal with the disciplinary actions. And like I said, over there in the file share, y'all were talking about PIPs, and we were looking at individuals who may have some issues at home. Some of the things you were typing in. Like I said, we got that 2 handouts over there. One's called the Employee Assistance Program. Good information in there. And also that other thing called from the Office of Personnel Management, the Poor Performance Guide for Supervisors, to help you. If you have some poor performers, you have to deal with disciplinary actions and so on. Well, when it comes to this, I'm going to ask you your last poll pod for the day. Put it right here in the middle of the screen. Have you ever formally disciplined a civilian employee? Have you had to do this before? Discipline a civilian employee, right? So here we've got one person said yes. Our multitude of 2 people yes. Our other multitude, a majority, over 90% have said no. Okay. Now remember, we don't use discipline as a way to really punish. We're trying to use discipline to try and correct some things so that these things really don't happen again. So when we start looking at discipline here, the AFI that covers that up top. Let's before we do that, let's look at the scenario. Disciplinary actions here. Let's talk about Sarah for a moment. All right. So Sarah is a TRICARE benefits analyst. She comes in between 30 and 60 minutes late, approximately twice a month, right? 2 times a month. She usually cites automobile problems or the traffic was too heavy as a reason for her tardiness. Now, her tardiness results in client interviews having to be reassigned to other employees. So it's affecting them. Or in clients having their interviews totally rescheduled. So it's affecting the clients too. Sarah's supervisor has verbally counseled her already about her tardiness on 2 occasions, with her making promises to do better, but the problem continues. So, type in the chat pod for me. What type of disciplinary action, if any, would you take, and so on? What do you think about this? Right? You've already counseled her. You already verbally counseled her a couple of times. Promised to do better, not doing better. Late twice a month on an average. It's impacting the employees. It's impacting the clients. What do y'all got to say? All right. So let's see. Start docking your pay. Money talks. Oh yeah. Part 3. 3-part. Yep. A removal from those responsibilities. Possibly a demotion. Okay. Okay. Those of y'all who, hang on, hold on, I lost my, hang on, I have to call back in. My phone disconnected, so hang on. People on the phone are probably wondering, where's Don? Yep, days off, may take leave. All right, for those of y'all who are on the phone, sorry, my phone disconnected, so I am back live on the telephone as well. All right, so I do apologize for that. All right, so here, like we said, we got the 3-part. We got may take leave, advisor report lating will require leave slip. Hey, we talked about paying, the time and attendance. In a previous week, we were talking about maybe she's taking advantage of the situation, whatever. Had some people type in, is she in DC? In previous classes, and that really it doesn't matter because we know that this is impacting. We've got to do something as supervisors to try and put a kibosh in this, because not only is it impacting the fellow employees, it's impacting our clients as well. Yeah. Okay. So here are some, of course, like I said, as I mentioned before, you have your AFI 36-704, which sets out the discipline and adverse actions when it comes to the civilian employees. Of course, like I said, there are differences when it comes to disciplinary actions on civilians versus your military folks. We talked about that during the very first week when we talked about standards and discipline and everything. So just know, like I said, as you look at these types of disciplinary actions here, we got oral admonishments and reprimands, suspensions. Y'all were typing in, reduction in pays and grade. Some people typed in removal and everything. So the idea is you've got what's called progressive discipline. And of course, we want to use our progressive discipline based on the scenario that's actually happening or situation that's happening. Sometimes we may have to go jump over something, a level, but based on the negative aspects of whatever happened or whatever it is. But no matter what, when you verbally counsel that individual, rehabilitate, whatever it takes, John, exactly correct. You should always document, no matter what. Even if it's a verbal counseling, still document it. Now, I know in your readings it talked about the 971s. And this is where you want to talk to your local subject matter experts. Some installations out there are using hard copy 971. Some are using automated. Whatever your folks out there tell you from the civilian personnel office and that, what type you're using, use that. But if you're just counseling but you're not documenting it, you could forget what happened. It's a memo for records, whatever it is, because you may need to use that later down the line if you're going to start doing something down this line right here. Especially once you start getting into those other things like suspensions, reduction in grade, and removals. This is definitely we're going to be talking to your civilian personnel office. I'm going to put a question in the chat pod for you, and the question is this: if you type your answer for me, what are some of the consequences that you may run into if you fail to act in a timely manner? What are some of the consequences you may run into? Right? So what do you think about that? All right. So I got lots of people typing in. Good. Hey, and remember, when you're doing this, remember we talked about those bargaining unit employees. Some of you may supervise them, some of you may not. You're right, exactly, Kelly. Things get worse. To caveat on that, it's possible that you may only have certain amount of time to act on it based on the master labor agreement. And if it says that you have to act within 3 days, now you're on day 4 and you forgot to do it, you can't say anything about it. So that can impact you as well, right? So we've got people silence is consent. Yeah, we mentioned that earlier. Silence means acceptance, and perception is everything. That's exactly correct, Montravius. Like we said, it could be time sensitive. Everyone starts doing it, and yes, it could start affecting morale, could spread, affect the other employees, and so on. Exactly correct. And it could also impact your ability of being that good supervisor, because people could look at you in a negative aspect as well if you're not stepping in as a supervisor and putting in those corrective actions. Now, some of the corrective actions you put into play based on Privacy Act is really none of the other employees' business. If another employee goes, hey, what'd you do to so-and-so? Really, I can't talk about that. That's between me and that employee, but the situation has been handled, all right? So if that employee wants to talk about it, that's their thing. But you could lose respect as well if you start passing on to everybody, what you did to that particular individual. So you could lose loss of respect for not doing anything. You could lose loss of respect by telling everybody what you did in that and so on. But like you said, if you don't do anything, indecision is a killer. One thing that you really want to do is trying to be as consistent as possible. And granted, we know that each situation can be different, but you want to try and be consistent, because if you're not being consistent, and if it could look like you're favoring one employee over another, again, here comes that perception, and that could mess with morale and everything as well. All right. So it's very careful, and sometimes that fine line that you have to run into. As I mentioned already, you see that little last bullet on the slide right there, civilian personnel. That is your subject matter expert. All right. Hey, guess what? Summary slide. All right, here we go. All right, we're not ready to go yet. We've got a lot to do yet, so don't bug out on me. All right. So here's what we did today. We talked about some employee engagement techniques. We used a little video using a 2-minute clip from the movie Office Space, and looking at Peter and his employee engagement and how the two Bobs are going to try and counteract that. All right. But we had you look at a couple scenarios and had you type in, how you thought about the particular employee engagement, and you actually listed a lot of the techniques that came up on that very next slide. Then we got into some handling unacceptable performances because, eventually, if you haven't had to deal with it yet, at some time you probably will. As long as you become a supervisor, eventually it'll happen. All right. So we talked about some type of different counselings. Y'all were typing in PIPs left and right, so y'all were really going into those performance improvement plans and also the disciplinary actions in that. Okay. All right. Any questions? Any questions about today's stuff? Any questions? If you have no questions, give me a green check mark. If you have no questions, give me a green check mark. All right, green check marks. If you have no questions, or green M&Ms. All right. All right. Now let's get into the ending of the course. Then here's what we're going to do. All right. All right. So your next steps and questions. So here's where I'm going to do the course wrap up. And remember, like I said, right, after I finish these slides and everything, and I say and thank you and all that kind of bit, I'm then going to turn off the recording, but don't leave because we'll talk about your grades. Okay, is what we'll do. Right? Let me clear everyone's status right there. So here we go. Now everyone completed their pre-assessment. I know that because if you didn't complete it, you wouldn't be here still. Right? So everyone has completed their pre-assessment. So you have 4 graded requirements that you have to do. Remember, your pre-assessment was no pass, no fail. So when you look at your grades, if it says 20 or 80 or whatever, doesn't matter, right? All right? You completed it. That was the thing. But on these 4 progress checks, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and your post-course review, which is your final test. So those 5 things right there. Remember, you must score at least a 70 on each one of them. We're not looking for an overall, let's see, 5 times 70 is 350. That means I need to score at least 350 total. No. We're not doing that. At least a 70% on each item. And I'm looking at your grades right now, and so far, I don't have anyone who scored below a 70 on anything so far. All right? But remember, if you do, you can continually take it over and over again until you get yourself up to at least the minimum requirement. All right? Now, the last thing, once you complete your final test, as you go through Canvas, the next slide after you do your final test, there's a thing called feedback, your end of course survey. Now, this is basically our report card, right? Now, this is not mandatory, but we really, really ask you to do this. This is where it's going to ask you these questions about the webinars, about your instructor, and whatever it is. Now about your instructor, that's me, of course. There are 7 instructors for this course. And so, we don't see the results of this. That actually goes straight from the system, the survey, because it's totally anonymous, into the system itself, and it goes to the head honchos, all right? So they see that. So, and this is where you can help us improve the course. If you got bad things to say about your instructor, I hope not. But if you do, feel free if I need to improve something, because that's the only way I'll know. But if you thought I did a good job, you can say that too, whatever the case is. Again, the end of course survey is not mandatory, but we really, really hope that you take the time to do it. It shouldn't take you but like 10, 15 minutes to do that end of course survey, all right? Our final feedback for the course. All right? And like I said, it's in that area right after your post-course review, that final test, all right? As you see right there, all your coursework, that includes the progress checks, the final testing, and the survey, you have to complete it before the course ends Monday night. Next Monday night, midnight time on 6th May, right? So that's the cutoff. And like I said, If you don't complete all your stuff, then I can't graduate you. Right? And every now and then we'll have 1 or 2 people that don't complete everything, but I hope everyone does. So that's why I'm going to go over your grades with you if we need to. Right? Now, remember how I told you during the orientation of how to check your completion status. So I go to the next slide, and this is where we're now in Canvas. So if you sign into Canvas, get to the main screen of Canvas. Like I said, you got your little bubbles, and one is called My Grades. When you click on My Grades, it then brings up your grade screen, your own personal grade screen. And these are in completion order. So as you see right there on that first line, it says new supervisor course, pre-course assessment. Yeah, you've already completed it. Even though the example on the screen has a dash, you have a score there. Trust me, but remember, it does not matter what your score is. Now, on those next 5, like I said, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, in your post-course review, you notice there are the 5 circles. If you have a dash, that means you have not completed it yet. And that's very important to note because I have a couple people who have actually did week 1, didn't do week 2, but did week 3s. So if you have a dash, that means that you haven't completed something. So remember, you got to have a score on all 5 of those of at least a 70%. And like I said at the bottom right there, ignore your total scores. And that's how you can do that. All right. Now, one thing I'm going to do for everybody is on Friday, because I got to give you a couple days to work on this. On Friday, I'm going to go back through the grade book, and I'm going to see, and I'll send out individual emails. If anybody owes anything on Friday morning when I wake up, you're probably still asleep, so you'll see it on Friday when you come to work. If you still owe anything on Friday morning, you'll be getting an email from me telling you exactly what you still owe. Now, like I said, you can easily check on yourself right here, just doing it by looking in Canvas. Because if you see it in Canvas, I see it in Canvas, all right? Anyway, so I'll send out on Fridays if you still owe anything. But I'm safe to say today's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'll lay odds on y'all will complete everything by Friday anyway, all right? But remember, it's due Monday, but no ifs, ands, or buts. There is no Tuesday, all right? There is no next Tuesday, all right? All right, so that's what's happening. This slide right here is a slide that Air Staff put out. This talks about all the different supervisory, civilian supervisory leadership and developmental courses that are out there. We don't teach all of these. Some of these are taught through different entities. What I wanted to point out to you is the one at the very top of the screen. Let me do there's my little arrow. That right there, that's the course that you're in. Right now, the USAF's new supervisor course. You can see the green arrow there on the slide. Now, you'll notice the one to the very right of that is called the USAF Experienced Supervisors course. What's going to happen is in 3 years, so roughly in 2022, you will be targeted to attend the refresher course, all right? So and then there's other courses based on your level of duties and responsibilities in that. The one right below that level on the second line, that first one there, that's the other course that I teach called the Military Personnel Management course. Again, that's for civilians that supervise Air Force officers and Air Force enlisted, all right? I'm the only one in the Air Force that teaches it, so if you're going to be in that class in the future, I will definitely see you then. That's a good question, John. John asked, will I still have access to the materials after this course? What's going to happen is you'll have access into Canvas for about a week, probably through the end of next week. That would be roughly on the 10th, maybe through that weekend, but definitely by the 10th, you'll have access. Remember, if you go in and do anything, it doesn't count, though. So you can go in and download all that stuff. Now, if you remember when you went into your, when you sign into Canvas, if you click on like your little picture in that, and or avatar, whatever it is, and you had your own personal area where you could do where you changed your password and all that kind of bit. There's a thing called ePortfolio. If you download stuff to your ePortfolio, when this course ends, you still have access to Canvas forever until the Air Force decides to do away with Canvas, right? However, you won't see this course anymore. So anything that you download into your ePortfolio, it's there until you delete your everything from Canvas, right? So you can download it from the course for about another week after it ends. But if you put it in your ePortfolio, it's there forever, as long as you want it to decay there, as long as we still have Canvas. Hope that answered your question there, John. All right. Anyway, so those are some courses. Maybe we'll see you in a future course. Right? Go ahead and close that little thing out right there. Of course, I've been talking about these two guys, these two M&Ms since the course started. So of course I could not leave without Mr. Red and Ms. Green telling you thank you as well. And I just want to tell you this. When you graduate on Tuesday, what's going to happen is you're going to get one of two emails from me on Tuesday. The first email, I hope everyone gets, it'll say, hey, congratulations, you've completed the course. Your certificate is going to be emailed to you by our course support folks. Now, it's very important about this. It usually comes in a few days, but if you don't have it by the 20th of May, email me. Now, keep an eye on your junk spam mail and Outlook as well, because it actually comes, once our support folks put your graduation into the system, it's actually sent by them via automation. So it may come, from just the system itself, all right? And sometimes it ends up in your junk or spam mail, and maybe you don't look there or something. So look in both places. If you don't have your graduation certificate by the 20th of May, then email me, and I'll get with our support folks, and I'll have them send you another copy, okay? But I guarantee they're going to be sent out, but sometimes they get lost in cyberspace or they get accidentally deleted or whatever the case is. So by the 20th of May, you don't have it, email me. When I also send that email out to you on Tuesday, I'll include a couple little extra benefit things, little couple handouts that I have for you, okay? That'll be in your email on Tuesday. For those individuals who don't complete their 5 requirements, then you'll get the other email on Tuesday that says, I'm sorry, you did not complete all your requirements. This is what you did not complete. And if this course is a mandatory requirement for you, then you have to take the course all over again. And we don't want you to do that. So that's why I'm going to be talking to your grades in a moment. Send you that email on Friday. Showed you how to look at your own grades in Canvas because I want you to graduate. All right? And then just know that after you graduate or even whatever, after Tuesday, I am still here for you. You have my email. I still answer emails to students all the time. Got questions? Email me. Gene, I know I'm not your main instructor, but if you got a question, you can email me as well. Right? I'll answer any emails from students. If I don't know your answer, like I said, we got 7 instructors, and we got a whole bunch of support staff back there. And our boss, Brian Schooley, is that prior Mission Support Squadron Commander. He is a guru on this stuff. If we don't know the answer, he does. All right? So we will get the information to you. We are here for you. The last thing I wanted to tell you is this, all right? The last thing. Got a course in journalism. I don't know. I want to come TDY to the stage myself, Gene. But the last thing I want to end with is this. I know you take time out of your schedule. I've had you for 7.5 hours, roughly, here in the classroom. I know that's time out of your busy schedule. And I know that as a retired chief and also as a prior civilian employee, I know you're busy. And so not only these 7.5 hours, but all that work that you did by doing your coursework in Canvas and everything, I know it takes time. So I really, really appreciate what you do day in and day out. And not only doing this, but also supervising those civilians that you take care of out there. So if I had a hat on, I'd take it off and throw it in the air and say, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. Okay? All right. If you got questions, feel free to type in your questions. Right? And remember, I am here for you. If you don't have questions, what I'm now going to do, you can type them in anyway, even if you do. What I'm going to do now, though, is I'm actually going to stop the recording. Right? And for those of y'all who are viewing this as a recording, right, just know that I am there for you as well. All right? So anyway, I'm going to stop the recording. And remember, don't leave, because I'll be answering any questions that you might have and also let you know if you owe any coursework. All right. So let me stop the recording.